All right. Anyways, yeah. We'll bring up our friend now, our new friend that I met at the screening, Netflix screening for this movie that's coming out, Okja. But God damn it, it's Bong Joon-ho. Bong Joon-ho. Did I get that name right? Okay, Bong is the first name. There's like a thing where the people that refer to working with him on set is like a part of Korean culture. You call him Director Bong as like kind of fun. I don't know.
That is fun.
This is getting neat. I wish we had that in West. That would be, if you're a director or you should be called like Writer Harmon, like, or Writer Dan. Yeah, I don't know. I'd like it. And then all the fertile women, we can round them up, dress them like nuns, but in a sizzling red color.
Sizzling.
Red nuns is hot. They're the handmaids, they're like red nuns. But only when they're going to buy oranges. Like, they also have to buy oranges for everybody. Okay, all right. I'll work on my dystopia. It's got third act problems. Anyways, this is a friend of Cody's who was there. That's why we were at the screening. And because I was at the screening, I didn't know anything about the movie. I never saw a trailer. My mind was fucking blown by this movie. So I was like, come talk about it, even though you guys haven't had a chance to see it yet. It's coming to Netflix next week. Let's welcome our new friend, Christina O. Oh, thank you. Christina brought a foam Okja.
Hi.
A foam?
She fell.
A foam what? What is that?
It's a super pig.
Oh, it's a super pig.
Okja in the movie is a super pig created by a corporation to genetically modified in order to solve world hunger. These aren't spoilers, right? Because the first 5 minutes of the movie, they explain it all. So there's giant pigs that are being tested, and and the story follows the ownership of one giant pig, Okja, and her owner. What's her name? Mija. Anyways, I saw you after the movie, and I was like, I think that was a perfect movie. I think it was a 10% Gyllenhaal reduction. Like people are gonna say he's over the top, but I didn't care. But I don't know why I qualified it with that, but it's because truly I wanted to, I really thought it was a perfect movie. And then you were like shocked to hear that, and it seemed like so was Bong. Can I call him Bong?
You have to call him Director Bong.
Director Bong.
Right. So the last name comes first is the formality, right?
Yeah, it's a very honorific culture.
Yeah.
You gotta eat that mic.
Dan's setting a bad example because his mic's way hot.
Sorry.
No.
Because my mic's hot.
No, it's just picking you up, from really far away.
Yeah, your mic's not as hot because we're in an honorific culture too. So
so the male gets the better mic.
There's a glass ceiling on your mic decibels.
Okay, I will.
Yeah,
put it.
I gotta get up on mine too. See, I'm like right here.
But don't cover it with your hand. Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Unless you're going to beatbox. Then I find that helps because it helps the peas not pop.
It looks cool, too.
Okja. Okja. So this movie was co-written by director Bong and...
John Ronson.
Now, tell us about him.
John?
Yeah. Was he there at the screening?
He was not. He's cool though. He's an author. He's like well-reviewed author, and he's known Bong forever, Director Bong forever. And then he came up with this, Director Bong came up with this crazy idea. I think driving down a countryside, and he saw this billboard, or he saw this animal, and was just like, oh, what's it doing out in the middle of nowhere? And
what was that animal? He mentioned that, but he didn't mention the species of animal.
I don't know.
It's
I just
so
think
weird
some
that
sort
he
of cute animal thing in Korea.
Yeah. So the movie, it's not going to be theatrically released.
So Netflix will do a day and date on June 28th, and it'll play in iPic theaters in LA for like a week or so, but no, we want you to go watch it on Netflix.
He talked about that a little bit, and he was answering questions through a translator. he speaks fine enough English to do conversative stuff. But what I was gleaning was that every director probably wants their movie to be on every theater screen in the world on Friday night, and have everyone go out and eat popcorn and watch it. Like it'll be a while before people get used to that not being the case. But it was worth it, the lack of that, to work with Netflix. This is an unpaid plug, because they're really like they I don't want to make them sound irresponsible, but they give you money and they kind of let you do your thing.
Well, that's kind of the reason why. Okay, so once you see this film, you'll realize, like, holy shit, who would have given these people like this amount of money to go make this movie? It was a crazy thing. Like, imagine going to a pitch being like, all right, so there's this girl and her best friend's this genetically modified pig and gets taken from her, and she's a visual effect. Give us like several $1 million to make this.
But also it's rated R.
And it's rated R. And there's like
that's the big thing. It's like, yeah, it's a big giant CG pig that you fall in love with the first moment you see it.
Yeah,
and it's
adorable.
A horrible rated R movie.
It is. I mean, I can't even imagine any other studio being like, yes, Director Bong, here's a check.
But that's why I really think it's a masterpiece. And I also, like, something, like, when I was watching, I was like, oh, so this is a Snowpiercer guy. I started watching Snowpiercer, and then I was like, there's tonal incompatibilities with me here. It's hard enough to write a comedy or an action movie. I don't want this goofiness happening in my action movies. And I kind of like drifted away from it, and I was like, I bet that's just a thing when East meets West, like filmically. And then when I watched this movie, I was like, wait, no, is this guy like the Coen brothers or anybody else that we put in that category where he's like fucking with us? He deliberately, he's evolving now, or maybe this movie just like makes it clearer that he really deliberately plays with tone in order to take you from laughter to horrible, like facing the abyss.
He's a master at that. If you've watched any of his other films, he did this film called Mother, and earlier did Memories of Murder, and then he did this Korean film called The Host, which the first time I saw it, I was like, what is this? And it's like this horror movie wrapped up in comedic bits. And one scene that I feel like wrapped him up was in that particular movie. There's a scene where the father figure is explaining to his kids why the third particular youngest son is like kind of seemingly messed up and doesn't have his life together. And he's like, we were so poor when he was little, and I couldn't feed him proper protein, so that's why your brother's like a little slower than you guys. And he's like really bearing his soul, and then the camera pans to the other brother and sister, and they're sleeping. Like, it's just like those tonal shifts where he's like trying to open up and be emotional about something, but the world is like not hearing it.
And it reminds me of Almodovar in that sense, that there's like and I don't know how much of that is the effect of watching a foreign film that blends a little comedy with like thought-provoking, weird, shaky shit.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to figure out as a Western viewer, is how much of this is one person's genius and how much of it is just the weird effect of like a movie translating across international borders.
I think it's a little bit of both. And if you know anything about Director Bong, he is like, I think growing up in Korea, which had a very military kind of like regime for a long time when he was growing up, like I don't know if he wants me to say this, but he was like arrested for protesting in the 90s and stuff like that. Like, he is intrinsically, I think, a person who has something to say about the way the system works and kind of fighting against him. This is kind of his way of doing it. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but that's kind of how I read it. This film, I think the underlying message, of course, it's about friendship and, this little girl and her bringing her family back, and like this having to come to terms with adults and like grow up really quickly in the span of like a week or however long this film takes place. But it also has this kind of like nod to like the greed and horrible nature of capitalism and
right, but you're never preached to.
It's not preached.
That's what I'm trying to figure out how to tell people, because the truth is, if I read the description of this on paper, I wouldn't. I don't think I would. I'd be like, well, when am I going to be in the mood to be told that every time I eat bacon that something horrible is happening? I'll put that on my list, but because I just wandered into this movie and saw it, I just like, I'm so enthused. I want to tell people, you don't have to worry about that. It is heart-wrenching, but only in the same way that kind of E.T. is. Yeah. And I guess it's sort of like, well, what if E.T. was delicious? It would just make E.T. kind of extra. You'd be rooting for Elliot to fly a little more. Spoilers: Elliot flies. E.T.'s kind of a piece of shit. This movie's really good. No, I mean, there's definitely a lot of like. You can sense there's like a half dozen movies that you could feel a real genuine like influence from without being derivative. Like you feel this whole E.T. thing, but you also feel this
thing,
King Kong
thing, King Kong, like Pete's Dragon, if you even want to go there. I would say that a big props, though, goes to our visual effects supervisor, Eric DeBoer, just putting it out there, but he helped create this magnificent creature. Like, I've never worked on a film where we've had this amount of CG, World War Z was a different thing, but this was like the main character, the star of the film, is a visual effect.
Yeah.
So how do you create that bond between this little girl and this made-up creature, and make it believable and touching? And I've seen the movie probably like 20 times now, and every single time at the end I'm like crying, and it's kind of remarkable in terms of like.
I found myself crying because the movie was so good. Sometimes I was like not because it was sad narratively. Yeah. There were those times then too where like I could hear Cody sniffling and I was like, if I look at her then she'll see that I'm crying. But I don't want to oversell it. But hey, everybody watch this and tell me I'm insane. Like if I if it's not actually like this big a deal, this movie. But like I found myself near tears because of the action sometimes, because I was like, yes, this is how you do it. It's like it's a little girl and she's like trying to save her pig, but like it's not cloyingly like, oh, she's a little girl, but she's a Powerpuff Girl. She's got big, strong powers, and you love her. Like she's a little girl and she's really at odds with the physical world, but she just is flinging herself literally and figuratively at this giant machine called humanity, and what I was most impressed by was like, there's these action scenes where if she's chasing it, you can see her making decisions about physically what she should try to do next, and you feel like you're playing like an 80s Laserdisc video game or something because you actually are with her, and that she's like, am I going to try to jump on this truck? Yeah, I think I should, but I didn't. Typically in action movies, there's a little bit of suspension of like, oh, well, how did you know that you were going to, you're just improvising, and so you decided to jump, and now you're going to land on that truck. But it's like, there's a slight difference between that and, I do this all the time, by the way. It's called dansplaining. I'm a terrible interviewer. I just bring people up and I just talk.
I coined that.
We're good here.
Yeah. But do you know, from working with him, is that a conscious thing when he's doing action that he wants people to track the choices?
Okay, well, another thing about director Bong is he's like a director we've never worked with before. This guy's like remarkably meticulous in the way he shoots. So every sequence or every whatever, the entire script is basically storyboarded. So I land in Korea and you're basically handed this book of the entire movie that's storyboarded shot for shot. Like it was insane. And then the night before we get our call sheets, and with them are the boards for the next day with exactly what's going to happen. So it was kind of crazy because you already knew what it would look like, and then you just, you would direct a scene and it was exactly like those boards, what was drawn. And a lot of people were like, oh, does that give you creative freedom or whatever? But it does. I think if you hear some of the actors talk about it, they're like, we knew exactly what we needed to do, so then we could kind of have freedom within those parameters. And then the little girl, Mija, who's played by An Seo-hyun, was just remarkable. She's like this incredible kid and did everything so beautifully, and then like would just go and do it, and she'd like be playing in the corner, and then he'd be like action, and then she'd go run down this street, and then he'd be like cut, and then she'd be like, where's the snack truck? And like wanting to go do
I think
that.
people are going to freak out most about her because
She's
people are
phenomenal.
freaking out about the little girl in Logan who's like so amazing and so striking, and she's doing so much with so little like dialogue and stuff. She's just like glaring at Hugh Jackman and like holding her own. But like this little girl is like doing these scenes with Paul Dano, who is I was never like, hey, sign me up for the Paul Dano fan club, nor was I a hater. I would see him and I go, who's that guy? His face is kind of weird. But he is fucking amazing. I wanted to marry him. Like his character. That's the other. And the other thing. Again, I'm doing it again. I'm not asking you anything. But like,
keep going.
Like that character is deeply flawed, but he's so righteous, and it's and his relationship with the girl. And I loved the internationality of the story. I love that it's part of the story that some people speak Korean and English, some people only speak Korean, some people only speak English.
That was kind of another aspect of the film that we wanted to touch upon. I think director Bong likes to have these characters that are conflicting. Like there's this animal liberation front, and they're a group with well-intentioned meanings, like, wanting to save this pig and expose this evil corporation, and how they like had created all these like super pigs that are just fucked up and they're just having a terrible time. But
they're terrorists. There's a group of terrorists in the movie, and they're the good guys.
There really is an ALF. Like that's an actual thing.
Yeah,
is it based on the actual?
I
group?
think it's not like a direct. It just happened to be like, I think it came from his cousin is like an activist or something.
Right.
But anyway, so they themselves are very conflicting characters, especially Steven Yeun's character, who is Korean American and he speaks Korean in the film, but he's like terrible at translating.
His character is.
His character is. I mean, in real life, I'm just kidding. His Korean's really good. His Korean's really good. So like they have these conflicting characters where, they have they really mean well, but they're kind of like a group of just like bumbling idiots at times.
Yeah, I mean they're pure of heart. It's hard to say. It's like it's that archetype where the people show up and they're kind of like they're goofy but they're heroes.
Even Jake's character is like a deeply. I don't know if you got that, but he's like a deeply flawed person who started out as like this, Steve Irwin-esque kind of like animal lover, and then has just been beaten down by this woman for the past like. Tilda's character for the past 10 years. He's like the shell of a man who he was, and he's just kind of taking it out on.
Yeah, let's talk about Gyllenhaal for a second in this movie. Who just because I want to protect him because I feel like he's making choices in this movie that are so fucking over the top that I'm afraid. Maybe I'm wrong about this, but I'm afraid people are going to go, "Why is he acting like the Riddler when other people aren't doing that?" But like, what kind of conversations does director Bong have with actors? Do they show up to set and go like, I thought I'd try something like this, and he's like, whatever, or is he like, how hands on is he?
So Jake came in like, I think we were halfway through our shoot in Korea or so, and we were literally on this mountainside at her house when he comes up. The mountain is like, that was like the first day, and it's this beautiful set. It's in the middle of nowhere. You have to like hike down for like 10 minutes. It's super secluded, and director Bong was just like, yeah, so he's coming up the thing, and maybe he's just really out of breath, so he's like, hey, hey. Right. And so he kind of ran with it, and then that happened, and it kind of just stuck. And we, of course, like us being on the other end, we see those dailies, and we're just like, does anybody want to say anything?
And what does Bong say at that?
Well, we were like, hey, and he was like, no, I kind of like it. So then we were like, all right. And we had like this weird trust that it would work out.
And it did, but I'm curious.
Wait, so he stuck with being out of breath as a character choice?
So when you see the film, I think he has a very high-pitched kind of...
It's kind of like, did you see Snowpiercer?
I hated Snowpiercer.
There's like...
It's a bad movie. Meet me after the show. I'll explain it to you.
There's like, everybody's... Tilda Swinton, what she's doing in this movie, along with Giancarlo Esposito, who was on Community, that's not important, but but it was also kind of exciting. But like the just the two of them, and along with what director Bong does with Foley, like in scenes that have no score, where they're talking, and like Tilda Swinton is. Like doing just that character is like simultaneously a total cartoon and absolutely like rich somehow, like captivating. Maybe that's just you're pulling out the Ferrari of actors and you're just like so just cruising around the block feels like an Olympic sport, or maybe but it feels like this incredibly amazing character, this performance, and then the Giancarlo being like her like attendee, and then he goes and makes a cup of coffee, and you're just like. The choice of the camera to be everywhere it is at every moment, where you watch Giancarlo Esposito make a cup of coffee for a second before doing his next line of dialogue, and everything is just Foleyed. Step, click, pour, steam.
You're thinking of bringing her to New York, right? And then that's my favorite. That's one of my favorite parts. She goes, I was just about to say that.
And I think it's in that scene because, like, then Gyllenhaal's also in that scene. He comes into it and goes like, "Here's what I think," and I'm kind of like, oh man, I don't want anybody to be punished for enthusiasm.
No, I think for the way that I like reconciled that in my head was that his character, basically he like 10 years ago was this normal guy, and then for 10 years he's been playing the role of this spokesperson and having to do all this stuff, and he's become a puppet for this corporation, that he's almost become the role that he was just playing.
And he does say that stuff. He does a little,
and then she even says like, "Quit your whining."
Right. If I was in the edit bay, no one needs my help on this movie. It's a masterpiece. But I did think, I was like, "Well, put your money where your mouth is, Harmon." If I was in the edit bay and I had all that footage and I had one pickup shot, I would just have one shot where where Gyllenhaal's character does a little amyl nitrate. Like he just does one popper. Or something weird, some weird thing, like huff something, or.
Well, that would have been helpful like 3 months ago.
But it's not. Yeah, I mean, it's yeah. So, so the movie, like this is the thing. Like, it's okay to say he's not a vegetarian, right?
No.
He helped write. He conceived of this movie, and then shot the entire thing. Everyone that watches this movie for at least 48 hours is not, you're gonna just not have sausage.
Yeah, I remember being in a meeting earlier on after we were doing some scouting, and we were watching some research footage of. There's a scene where I don't want to like give it away, but they're dealing with animals in a certain way, and so it's based that scene is based off of a real how they actually treat cattle.
Well, of course, yeah, we figured, yeah. I mean,
and I was sitting in this meeting, and he was like, "Oh, I want to show you this research clip," and I was like, "Oh God," and I was sitting there trying to hide that I was crying, like in a room full of like producers and other execs.
Was it actual footage of actual?
Yeah, it was actual footage of cattle being led to their slaughter, essentially, and they like recoiling, kind of knowing like they were headed into something dangerous. Yeah. And it was like the worst thing I'd ever seen, and I was like, I don't want to eat anything after this.
I had a couple of friends, and I can't say their names because they might still be like the ALF, the Animal Liberation Front, was on FBI's like most wanted list, and it might still be. And they would go into meat processing plants and animal testing labs and take the footage. And I would tell people like I'm vegetarian. I don't preach it. People should eat what they want to eat. But there's a couple of things. If you don't want to eat meat, don't watch this tape. Yeah. And there's footage that's so absolutely compelling and so horrifying.
And that's the thing that I want to make clear. Only because creatively this movie deserves so much recognition for what it's somehow pulling off, and I have no idea how it's doing it. How is it that part of the movie? Everything that I've said, you're imagining like, oh, I understand. The idea is like Lisa Simpson. She sees the movie and it's like gross, and it's like you don't want to eat meat anymore. But it's like it's not. Somehow it doesn't gross you out. It doesn't make you. It doesn't spank you as a meat eater for 40 years, but it just somehow invites you up.
I think that's the point. We didn't want to. For us, at least, our intention is to never be like preachy about anything. We just want to show you a different view of something and be like, kind of like, hey, this is how it is. Make your own decisions. But we would like to show you a different side of the truth that maybe you aren't familiar with, and that's kind of like...
I mean, that's a really extraordinary mind at work on his part. It's like, would he be a better person if he didn't eat meat? Sure, so would I. But since he does enjoy bacon at breakfast, him making that decision, artistically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my camera on this side of that story, that issue, that part, and I'm going to do that faithfully. He just wanted to do that creatively, and then he just finished the movie and he ordered some sausage, and that to me, it may not make any of us good people, but it certainly makes him a genius.
Yeah, actually, I think when he went on his research trips he actually like visited some slaughterhouses. I think the whole crew that went on that trip couldn't touch meat for a while because it was like there's something about the smell and
right. There's also different levels of, we're talking about like, I imagine there's people that have different levels of issue with different, it's like there's probably people in the audience that personally eat meat but also recognize that there's perhaps like an industrial problem where we're doing it wrong. The system is built wrong. We're over addicted to meat. We should make it more expensive, and it should be always processed in a way that comes as close as possible to shooting it with a bow and arrow and praying over its carcass in the forest.
Yes, that's exactly what.
And what about you, by the way? I never asked you. Like, are you a vegetarian?
I have made a kind of decision to try and do the pescatarian thing for a while because after having worked on this, I didn't eat pork for the entire thing. There's something about piggies and...
What about crustaceans?
I actually don't like shellfish or crustaceans. That's no...
Yeah, I'm off of them since New Orleans.
Because you just ate too much?
I just brought a brown bowl of... It looked like H.R. Giger made a... It was just like everything. It was just like the eyes and the face, and it had an expression on its face. And I wasn't a human, and it wasn't like, oh, this poor jumbo shrimp.
That's the exact face they make right before they die, and it just freezes.
It's when they know they're like, I'm gonna be served to a guy that's not even going to appreciate me, aren't I?
But what a terrible death! You killed me, and the guy didn't fucking dig it.
Yeah, he didn't even.
But it was more like because they put a bib on you. And but it's like I look over at Cody and she's like, yeah, you get it, I don't know, but I'm like, what did you do? I lifted it out of the bowl, it's curled up, and then as you uncurl it, the legs go like that, and then juice goes everywhere. And then you're just like, well, do I eat the face off and then squeeze its body into my mouth?
Rip the head off and then suck the head.
Suck the head, she says.
Sorry.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, I was like, I just peeled it like a hard-boiled egg down to a big jumbo shrimp and then ate it. And was like, yeah, it's fucking shrimp, bro. Don't make it shaped like an insect.
But we talked about this. You don't like when you get meat on the bone. You don't like to have to do the work.
Yeah.
You want it to be done for you.
And I would definitely, if we were living in a proper kind of caveman tribe,
you'd die.
I would be a vegetarian. I would be like, okay, I wrote a play for you guys. Can I have a piece of brisket? And if the alpha was like, no, you gotta kill what you eat, what you kill, I'd be like, then I'll have a salad. Like I don't like your attitude. And good luck with the obvious analogy for your character in my play being coming off like.
What do you think would be in your caveman salad? What would that consist of?
Arugula and Parmesan. Just because I like that at Little Dom's.
That's one thing about the cavemen that people don't really appreciate is how good they were at making aged cheese.
Fantastic.
But
Christina, so how did you get you're a producer? You work for Plan B. How long have you been there?
A little over 6 years. I'm an executive producer.
Executive producer.
It's a step below. No, it's a step below.
Yeah.
Settle down.
I fell for the same thing. I'm an exec producer on Anomalisa. It's like I didn't do anything. But you did lots of stuff on this movie.
So when awards are handed out, you're not going to be up on the stage for that necessarily? Or?
No, I'm okay with that.
Yeah. But at what stage did you get involved in the film? Like how early in?
So I got involved towards the end of 2015, I think October or November of 2015. I was like shipped away on a location scout.
Wow.
For like days.
I forgot the connection was Plan B, which is Brad Pitt's company, which is hilarious. He's the CEO of isn't he? Like,
yeah, he owns it.
Yeah. Is he always eating when he comes into meetings, or is that only as an acting choice? Like it's like
No, he likes to eat.
Is he? Because he started like as soon as it appears as soon as he got a say in what he gets to do on camera, he obviously started saying as an actor, "Could I be eating something?"
Watch any Brad Pitt movie with the sound off. He moves his head a lot and he points a lot. There's a lot of pointing and a lot of. George Clooney has like a weird George Clooney's head is always like on a swivel. It's like he's bobbing like it's funny to watch like actors without the sound on.
All right.
Yeah.
Guess I know what I'm gonna go.
Christina, give us some dirt on Brad Pitt. Talk some Brad Pitt shit.
He's a lovely human being. He's just the best.
What is it? How often? I mean, or just like, what is he like in person? I mean, I'm just honestly just asking, like I'm a high schooler.
I mean, I feel like I'm just gonna let it. He's literally just like he's normal. He comes in and
he doesn't go. But it's cool. I mean, his company is doing cool shit. Like World War Z. I understand why it wasn't. It didn't break records and whatever. But it was a great idea to try to make that book into a movie. And
geopolitical zombie film.
Yeah, I like his usage of what he's been dealt. Like he's Brad Pitt, and like he's like lots and lots of actors are like, okay, then I'll have a production company, but he's like. Clearly, somewhere in that pipeline, there's somebody going, and it might be CEO Brad Pitt going, like, I want to make good choices and make better movies.
Yes, of course, he's great, but Dee Dee Gardner and Jeremy Kleiner, my colleagues, are like really just crushing it.
I remember Dee Dee Gardner worked at Paramount, right?
Yeah,
a long time ago.
Before Plan B, yeah.
Brad Pitt. We got. That's great. 12 Monkeys.
What is Brad Pitt? Does Brad Pitt?
That's where I'm getting my impression of.
Does he have like a? Like I wear two outfits. I wear either a suit or I wear like a V-neck like sweater and jeans. Like, does he have an outfit? Like, does he have like
more Brad Pitt?
Does Brad Pitt have a uniform that he wears, or does he wear different shit every day? Like, give me some quotidian Brad Pitt shit.
I'm like the most unfun person to ask Brad Pitt questions to.
So you don't want to be part of our regular weekly segment, The Pit Stop? Where we just check in. We'll find someone else. Fine. But talk about...
Welcome to The Pit Stop, everybody. Oh, no. Oh, God.
He doesn't have a uniform.
It's the update. It's a whole different thing here.
Where were you born and raised?
Massachusetts.
And so you moved out to LA first, or
no? Okay. So I was born and raised in Massachusetts until I was 13, and I moved to Arizona. Boo.
4 people cheered for Massachusetts. 1 guy, boo.
I bet that guy's from Arizona, right? Like,
are you
from Arizona?
You're from Boston. You just hate Arizona.
You just don't like people leaving Massachusetts. Okay.
Where in Massachusetts? Boston. Okay. I grew up in Peabody.
Oh.
Super tiny.
Is that a town that's spelled differently than its name would suggest?
I suppose.
It's spelled Peebuddy is how it sounds.
Yes, Peabody. That's the one.
Peabody. Gotta love Massachusetts.
Yeah, and then I moved to LA.
Spencer, will you be my pee buddy later on?
Yeah.
Is production your ambition, or are you transitioning? Like, is helping out in a production capacity? Like, is it the end all be all, or is it a means to?
No, of course. Like, I'm gonna be a producer without the executive in front of it.
Right. But that's where it's not. It's not like, and then I'll be a director, or then I'll be.
No, I'll leave that to people that are far more talented than I am.
I'm glad you said that, because we have directors and writers up here all the time, and then we go like, "What's your advice?" But it's like we have so few. Like Steve Levy, my assistant, he wants to be a producer, and 10 years ago I'd be like,
"Turn away.
That's not an ambition. Fuck back. You. Suits are evil. Whatever." And I would have gone on to get fired by everybody, and no one likes me, and they're like, "Why do you keep calling us Suits?"
I think people don't really know what a producer does.
Right, like producers are fucking important as AF, to put it in your language, your millennial language.
As important Korean, as right? AF. They're important AAF.
Yeah. Well, I switched over. It was like Gen X to millennial. Like it's like Spanglish. I was like as AF. All right, but it's
like saying like pin number.
You can choose how much gender mustard you want to put on this. You can either answer this for the young ladies in the audience as a woman interested in production, or you can just answer it as a human being. That
also, you can do both at the same time.
You guys are going to go home tonight and realize that meant nothing. I am not a villain. And that was not a hero. You'll figure it out later. Whatever. I forgive you, for you know not what you do. But yeah, I mean, if it's like people out there that are going, I want to work in production. Like, what are they? How and what are the obstacles? Any pieces of advice? Whatever, take it.
Why? Thank you. There is no like, do this and then do this and then do this and then you're a producer. If anyone ever tells you that, they're lying to you. I did an internship, worked my ass off, and very serendipitously landed at this company.
People hear that. Maybe some people are going, okay, so what do you open the yellow pages? Do you Google yellow pages and find out what yellow pages mean? What can you like really get granular about? Like, what do you do from Massachusetts? Like, what the first step where you go like, I'm gonna like start.
You
interning.
have to have kind of slightly oppressive Asian parents that want you to be a doctor or a teacher, and then but you secretly have to want to do something a little bit. I mean, Happy Father's Day, Dad! I love you. I love you so much. Actually, my dad wanted to be a film director, but then gave everything up and.
Don't you have to call him Father Dad in your culture?
Yes, Father O. Father O wanted to be a film director, and he actually went to film school in Korea in I don't know. 70s, and then he immigrated to America to give us a better opportunity, so to speak.
But then, how do you get to be an intern on
So then I like moved to Arizona, went to school, and Scott Stuber was an alumni.
Scott Stuber.
I know.
He sounds like he can do anything.
He's at Netflix now.
He sounds like an Archie comic character. That
he's great. He's super lovely, and I interned at his company out of college in my last semester.
Is there a bulletin board at University of Phoenix? Is there what was the actual
University of Arizona?
Okay.
Yeah. Woo! Wildcats. Go Wildcats. No, he was an alum there, so he had this like premier internship program that you had to apply for, and then I got it, and I went, and you work for free for 4 months, and then it opens doors for you, I suppose. But if anybody actually is interested or wants to know, I guess come find me afterwards because
Oh God! Don't do that to yourself. No.
Okay, then don't.
That is why I'm asking, because sometimes people are like, "What do I do? What do I do? Can I be an intern on your show? Can I be a PA and all this stuff?" And I'm like, I never did that.
Yeah.
And so I don't know.
Interning is a great thing, be a PA, but it's just like kind of like my thing is be nice to everyone and introduce yourself and like be a cool person and things will happen. If you're an asshole, like I immediately am like, I don't want to talk to this
How
person.
did you sustain yourself like when you were like people like that have internships like you're not being paid for your work? Like were you broke back then or did you have
I lived my parents helped me, of course, thank you. But I like lived with this old Korean couple. They were super nice. I stayed in a bedroom at their place that they like kind of randomly knew my parents. And I just stayed in a lot and I didn't eat a lot of rice and kimchi.
You're so racist right now.
but that's the thing. Like you hear about like a lot of people that get to become like like you turn on the news and everyone's a journalist that they're all rich people because they could afford to be they could afford to spend 3 years unpaid labor as interns and doing this stuff. But you actually just like you squatted with an old couple and didn't eat much except like basic food.
Well, I did. I mean, like, I did eat because otherwise I'd be a lot skinnier. But no, I do think like I knew when I needed help, and I was like, listen, like I want to do this. Like, how do I do this? And my school was really cool and helpful, and I did thankfully find this couple, which was kind of odd. Like, it was in a weird bedroom in Koreatown, and there was a fridge in my room. I didn't really understand, like a full-size fridge.
Did you ever look inside of it?
It was empty. Yeah.
I lived in Koreatown when I first moved to LA. There was a murder in the alley behind my house, and I'll tell you later.
Mine wasn't that bad, but yeah, we should talk later.
Koreatown, like it doesn't sound like Danger Town.
I guess it helped that I am Korean, so it made a little bit of sense.
I'm sure the guy that got murdered was Korean. I don't know. I'm just assuming, but
no, it is difficult, and I think like the difference now I think is a lot of internships actually do pay you.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
That's good.
What's next for producer O? What's next for plan B if they're the same thing? You can answer as a woman or a Korean. But not both. Fuck you people.
I actually became actually through this whole experience I became friends with Steven Yeun. He's an awesome dude. And so I think we are gonna try and cook something up. And then we're working on a film, James Gray's next film right now. We just wrapped a film called Beautiful Boy, directed by Felix von Groningen, which is gonna be it's gonna be like a little sad, but
well, so is Okja, but it's
9/11, everybody. Let's hear it for Christina. Oh,
but those things aren't related. Thank you, Christina O, for talking about Okja. Okja is when's it on Netflix?
June 28th, next Wednesday.
June 28th, next Wednesday.